When I was asked to come for this conference, I was delighted because my ambition from age 10 was to be a meteorologist. A meteorologist. And nobody has even heard the word. A meteorologist is a specialist on climate, in measuring climate. And every school, and the school that I attended, had a box and a place. Every morning we measure the rain, we measure the humidity, we measure the time, yeah? And then we write it on the board and to share with people what's happening to the climate. That, it rained yesterday with so many drops of water. Can you imagine that we were doing these kinds of things in school? And this was 70 over years ago. They've forgotten these kinds of things. Yeah, completely forgotten about these kinds. Even the word is forgotten. Yeah, and my ambition, after having worked for 6 years on this in school, I once forgot to go in the morning to take the readings. I had to do the reading at 7 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock in the evening. And when the school asked for somebody to be the volunteer to do this, I thought, what a great thing to do, nice. I put up my hand and he said, you are selected. I was so happy. Later, I was told that nobody wants to do the job. It's a stupid thing. You've got to wake up at 7 in the morning and, and 7 in the evening to go. But anyway, I was so happy that I was doing this particular work. And one day I forgot. I woke up late. And I cannot imagine, how guilty I felt that I had let down the whole of humanity. And I didn't know whether I should go to school now. How can I explain to the teacher that I had forgotten to put the details, of how much rain there was and what was the temperature and the humidity on the board. And my father found me like hiding and crying, afraid to. He said, don't. He said, don't. He said, tell the teacher that you slept late and that you couldn't do it. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. And for me, that was an amazing lesson in terms of also of speaking the truth, of learning from these kinds of experiences. So my experience in climate was so much that when I finished school, and that was the Penang Free School that's mentioned on one of the boards there, it's the oldest English school in this country, over 200 years old, and it's called the Free School because it was free for all religions. So 200 years ago, in Malaysia, in fact, in this region, we had a school which was free from all religions, and I grew up in a whole cosmopolitan place. And Penang is one of the cosmopolitan capitals of the world. People of all creeds, colors, cultures find their way to Penang. We were a center for refugees. We were a center for people who were looking for opportunities and entrepreneurs. We became the street food capital of the world. Yeah? This is with an FAO where all kinds of things were available, just amazingly. So when I was leaving school, the headmaster interviewed me and told me, what are you going to do with your life, Anwar, after this? Because, the school likes to advise you. You're going to become a doctor, an engineer. I said, I'm going to become a meteorologist. And he said, what? Meteorologist? Don't you know that to be a meteorologist, you have to be in the science section of the school. You have to do science, but you did arts. You were in the school for social sciences, history, geography. But I said, I'm a geographer, which was my favorite subject. And geography was about everything and everything and everything, together. They said, sorry, you can only go and study in universities about meteorology if you were a scientist. And that was the kind of trap very often that we were that we became so specialized and separated that very often we never knew about the connections of everything with everything else and everything with everything else everywhere, yeah, in the place. And that was my sort of great learning. So when people asked me, where are you from? I tell them I'm an alien. Alien. And they said, what? I said, I have a certificate to prove it. I have a certificate to prove it an alien. I once overstayed in the United States accidentally because the flights were, I did not have a visa for the United States. I was going to Canada as a student activist in 1962 to attend the International Student Conference in Quebec in Canada. But the plane was flying, stopping in Hawaii, stopping in San Francisco, stopping in Chicago, and going. When I arrived in Hawaii, they asked me, where is your visa? You haven't got a visa to go to the United States. I said, I'm not going to the United States. I'm going to Canada. But he said, your plane is stopping in those places. And that time, they had no such thing called transit. Nowadays, we know, transit lounge, nothing. So they arrested me, and I have to, the airline is in charge of me. They put me in their office and keep me there during the whole duration of while I am there. I was so happy. They gave me coffee and biscuits, and then after the plane, everybody loads on the plane, and I am the last person to be taken onto the plane. So they will take me and they say, sit down. Yeah. I think the people in the plane must have thought this must be a prince or something, because I was not like being rushed into the plane. I was being escorted to the plane and said, this is your seat, sir. And this happened to me in Chicago, where I was 7 hours kept in the room, taken good care of. And when I left, I had a passport given back to me because I was under detention, under escort. And in it was a piece of paper by the immigration authorities of the United States of America. And that letter said, alien to be detained during transit and to be removed via flight so-and-so. Wow, I said, I now have a certificate. If anybody asks me, where are you from? I am an alien. And of course, the strange thing is that the United States of America, which Kennedy, John Kennedy described as a nation of immigrants, actually regards all new people coming in as aliens. They forget the native people. They come as a colonial authority in the place, and then in the end, they call all visitors aliens. And I like this, and I'm keeping that certificate framed up because it does make me feel very universal. It makes me feel very universal. It also makes me feel that I can see things from above. You see things all over from above. And so I became someone whose life was connected to the whole world. I became someone who was engaged in, you can say, everything that affected human beings. Anywhere, anytime. And that was the consumer movement, the movement where we tried to protect the rights of the people. It was not so much only what the good price is of a product, it's how that product is made, how is it destroying the environment, what are the working conditions, how is it killing people who are doing the work that is doing. And all these things became connected. So we began a movement that where consumers become aware not just for value for money, but value for people and value for the environment. And these three values became the strong elements of what then you could understand about the world, and how issues like climate justice began to emerge. The word justice particularly being used. You come to Penang, which is so environmentally interesting. Being an island, surrounded by sea, and if you go and sit outside, you can see infinity. Yeah, look at the, because there's no end to the world, to your universe. You can see the clouds. You can see the sunset in the evenings. You can see the sunrise coming, you know. I mean, you see the whole of the universe operating in front of you. You can see the clouds. You know, I'm an expert on cloud. They have a group called cloud spotters. It's also a specialty, you know, because, you know, clouds have different kinds of shapes, and there's a whole scientific element that shows you, you know, this type of cloud, that type of cloud, this dark cloud is going to indicate. And people forget how something like a cloud has so much interesting things to tell you about what's happening around. We forgot. Every time we drink a glass of water, the water that we drink has this beautiful story, a life story of water. We take it from our tap. We wonder where it comes from. It comes from the rivers. It comes from wells. And where did that come from? It came from the sky, from the rain. And when the rains come, it's connected with the clouds, which are the ones that are holding our rain. And then, you know, when they reach a certain kind of period, zoom, they return the water to you. Yeah? And then it's called rain. Wonderful. You know, I grew up in the rainiest town in Malaysia, which was wonderful. As kids, the joy for us when it rains is to go out and run in the rain. Nowadays, say, quickly, get an umbrella, you know, quickly. Yeah? But we enjoyed it. It was so fun. We could drink the water. We could play, you know, with it. And so the understanding of the ecology of our universe and the ecology of human beings is so critical if you are going to be change makers, yeah? Persons who are going to make a world that is different. And you will have friends and you will have enemies very often in life. Yeah? And one of the challenges that we had was that you have these three systems. One is the people, who are represented by civil society. And people's voices are heard in different ways. You get elected, you get political, but people, the civil society groups are those who are independent of politics and who form organizations around the issues and make them then the voice of the people. And this kind of voice of the people, while being heard locally, was not very much heard of globally. We had the United Nations, which starts off like, you know, we represent the people, but actually it didn't represent the people, represent the governments. And the governments don't necessarily represent the people. They represent people who elected them, you know, for some reason. So it becomes very, very complicated. And it took some time for the United Nations to recognize civil society. But they gave us a very funny name, you know. They call us NGOs, non-governmental organizations. Why are they calling us by a name that we are not something? Oh, these are governments. You are non-governmental organizations, you know. So vocabulary of this kind, you can see, was in the mindset of people, like we were outsiders, we were outsiders. That the UN Charter talks about we the peoples, we the peoples. Yeah? So the growth of civil society was something very much more in the last, you can say, 60 years, 70 years, when slowly it began. It began to speak out on various kinds of issues. And one of the capitals of civil society in the world, surprise, 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 was a little island in Southeast Asia called Penang. When once we got, we started the global organizations. We have the International Organization of Consumers Union, which was at one time only interested in value for money. I was asked to set up the Asia office after I started the Consumer Association of Penang, which is the oldest consumer organization in this country, which took up these kinds of issues. I got the office moved to Penang. It was originally in Singapore. But Singapore refused to give me a work permit. Interesting. I said, maybe because I'm an alien. Huh? Why? Of course, I'm not a citizen of Singapore. And they had a vote of the World Consumer Organization Conference about where an Asia office should be located. And more people voted for Singapore than Penang. Penang, we had the most active group, but nobody had heard of Penang. In the 50s, where is Penang? I think some of you also, when you told the conference was being held in Penang, let me look at the map, Google map, where is this place? Yeah, and actually it's in a very strategic place. Huh? It's in the north of the Straits of Malacca, this is called, and it has amazing history of them. Then, although I was appointed, I was not given a work permit, so we checked up why. Why? Even the president of the World Organization, who was from Cambridge, and the president of Singapore was also from Cambridge. They knew each other. He wrote a letter saying, we appointed this guy as the head. What's the problem? They still said no. I was so happy because we wanted the office to be in Penang. And when they said no, hooray, the world headquarters of the consumer organization moved over here. But later I found out the reason why I was not acceptable, because they said, this guy, he's an activist. He was president of the University Students' Union and the National Union of Students. He's a troublemaker, We don't want somebody like that in a state like Singapore, which we wanted to become, developed and moved forward. And so the World Consumer Organization was set up here, and out of it sprouted the International Baby Food Action Network, the International Pesticide Action Network, the International Health Action International. So we took up the fights against the pharmaceutical companies. We took up the fight against the big pesticide companies. We took up the fights against the infant formula companies, Nestle and the rest, and the global boycott still continues on. And in the United States, suddenly, there was an interest now that there is groups that are emerging, that are going to the United Nations, and they are attacking the multinational corporations. What? And they set up a heritage foundation during the time of Reagan, president, the actor, who was there. And this first study that they did was the study of civil society, these new NGOs that are emerging that are causing a problem to multinational corporations. That are causing and they were worried, that now a new force is emerging that they cannot control. They cannot control. And so, in their Heritage Trust, they said, where now we must fight these groups. We must fight these groups. And they actually began a whole program of trying to undermine our work, the way in which the work of climate activists also can be undermined, because you are fighting the forces, sometimes we call them the evil forces, that are undermining the environment. And in their first study, they said, my God, this place, this whole thing is located in a place called Penang. Can you find out where this is, and they mentioned, and it's run from this place. And even, interestingly, we had a situation where spies were implanted into our organizations, where they try to get, for example, in the States, one of the big corporations, their security officer and mass communications person happened to be a former MMI or whatever it is. That's the very top level secret spy agency, the equivalent of CIA from the United States. This is from Britain. He was appointed the head of communications of a very big corporation. And what that person tried to do was to plant people in the civil society, in that. And of course, when we found strange people emerging, we managed to find out that actually they were planted in that. So I'm mentioning these kinds of stories because the stories of civil society to fight for justice. You are fighting against forces very often that actually have no genuine interest in Mother Earth. They have an interest in the money that they can make. And because they have the interest in money, anyone who comes across their path are organizations that need to be fought against. And this battle will never end, because with each generation, we have new kinds of challenges and new kinds of issues that are emerging. So for us, climate justice now is, very often we just talk about the climate problem, but actually it's a crisis, and it's a crisis that is so strong that is in front of all of us, was happening in front of us. It's impacting on the whole of the earth. And now we have people who said, we have to work on it. We have to become technical people that can tell the stories of really how it is harming. We can have people who are in the human rights movement who talk about justice and see how exactly we can do things. We have people who are part of the alternative movement, the movement now that looks at our whole economic system, looking at local economies, looking at the way we plant and grow, and how can we become eco-friendly? How do we make sure that we also know that things like ants, we always say, ant. I mean, the billions and billions and trillions of trillions play such an important role in Mother Earth. I mean, they are down there. They live in the soil. They move things. Their intelligence is amazing. And we had a situation here in Penang one time at one park. There were lots and lots of ants there, and one government official came. Why are you not spraying and getting rid of the ants. I mean, that is the kind of mentality. Yeah, why are you not spraying and do that? I happened to be there, and I said, if you're going to spray this, they're all going to end up in your house. Yeah? Because you are killing their habitat. Yeah? This is where they are very comfortable. They are down there. They go in there. They churn the soil. They add fertilizer to it. They add ventilation to it that gives all the soil underneath a new kind of strength. Yeah, and soil is such a powerful thing, and very often we just look at it as nothing, in the place. So these kinds of realizations of what exactly are the real facts are the challenges we have before us in climate justice. And to be activists, to be the persons who are change makers, the kind of persons that the Right Livelihood Award, again, there's some kinds of skills that are quite important. We have in Penang, if you have time, you can visit a monument. I don't know whether, Shamila, you know about this monument. It's near the courthouse. Yeah. And this monument is a monument erected by the people of Penang, not by the government, by the people of Penang, to celebrate the life of the first environmentalist in Penang. It was nearly 200 years ago. Can we imagine? We had the first. He was a Scotsman. Interesting, what's a Scotsman doing in Penang? Yeah, and as I told you, we are a very cosmopolitan place with people from all over. His name, James Richardson Logan. He was a lawyer, and he was a lawyer who fought for the rights of the people, because Penang at that time was controlled by a corporation. What do you mean your country was controlled by a corporation? It's called the East India Company. People from India will know. Yeah? People from Holland will know. The Dutch. A company was owning Penang. Yeah? And they made sure that only they can do business in Penang. The local people have to sell everything that they have to the company, and anything they want to buy, you have to buy from that company. Can you imagine such a corporate monopolistic system that was operating here? So this Scotsman took up and said, hey, United Kingdom, champion of democracy, and they're talking about, they are the civilized world. They were describing it. We were all the uncivilized place. There's a kind of mindset, and he made an issue out of this, and he got the rights of the local people to do their buying and their selling and their growing, and removing the monopoly of this company called the East India Company. The hills of Penang, you see them beautiful now. A lot of it was cut because people felt, what are colonies for? Colonies must grow things that are useful for us that we can take back to our country. So a lot of the hills of Penang were destroyed, and they wanted to grow some new crops, homogenic crops, spices, because spices were the big thing at the time in the world, Everybody got taste, everybody got good taste, and then, again. He fought against that and stopped that. So a lot of the Penang Hill, particularly the one towards the airport, regenerated into a forest. So we have one part that is on this part here that has been around since time, then we know it's a UNESCO bio-reserve in Penang, which is very nice. At an island like this, that's one of the few bioreserves in the world recognized by UNESCO as a protected area and there is a little garden in there called the Spice Garden, which is the headquarters of everything that you want to know about spices. And they also protect and teach you about the value of trees and the value of plants. Yeah? And so this guy said, no. So when he died, the local government didn't like him. The local businessmen didn't like him. And he was the example of the first, you can say, civil society activist in this place, who just fought for the rights to the people as an individual, as a lawyer. So the people of Penang got together, donated the money, and this was nearly 70, 80, 100 years after he died, and make a monument for him. And the monument was not about him. The monument was not about him. The monument is a very big monument, about 25 feet high. It is surrounded by 4 women. So we have statues of 4 women. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 sides. Yeah? And what did these women represent? One of them was carrying the weighing scale. This woman represented the first of the 4 cardinal virtues that are very important in life. Yeah? Justice. Justice. Yeah? Another one, courage. Another one, fortitude. That even when things are difficult, you still do the best that you can. And I can't remember what the other one was. Yeah, temperance. Temperance being moderate. It refers, nowadays we use the word temperance. It's usually people who drink too much alcohol, or take too much drugs, so on. Temperance. Live your life in a natural, coordinated way. Don't let it explode to extremity, and that extremity, of course, will get into you. And these kinds of issues then led to him being recognized, and we decided every year there is a local lecture, and we invite people from civil society to talk about the challenges that our world has and how we can fight them in areas relating particularly to laws. And we know the power of laws. Laws, like someone said, are like a spider net sometimes. They catch the small people, but the big people, they will break the web, yeah, because they are too powerful. And laws very often then have to be very carefully looked at. How do they protect? And you find many efforts by self-interested corporations, self-interested governments that will try and undermine these kinds of laws so that they become more acceptable to them. And we have all these kinds of vocabulary now about greenwashing. You've heard about this vocabulary. Greenwashing means, make it look like as if it's environmental. On the first thing you do is to paint it green, so it looks nice, yeah, in the place. But this battle of getting justice for Mother Earth is the most important, the most challenging, the most significant thing. And we need champions and champions and champions. Yeah? And not forgetting that it's this last, you can say 3 centuries that we have actually become the destroyers of Mother Earth. Whereas before we had systems that you respected, because if you treated Earth badly, you will not get the next crop. Yeah, you will have to get it. If you don't keep the water of the river clean, you will not have water to drink. Yeah? And so you began to respect ecology in a way that is so significant. And of course, like I mentioned, water is so central. Penang, incidentally, is one of the best places for clean water, the cheapest price also in the country, on the cheapest price for good quality water. And a lot of the water came from the hills. And how is it was coming from the hills? Because we protected the hills and we were able to get fresh water that's coming down. Later, of course, because the population grew, we had to try and take water from the other side. And then when water demand became great, sadly, very often, we began to have the situation where water was treated badly. It had to be captured and put in such a way that it will, be used. And so you began to have the culture of dams, and we had all the problems, Sarawak, the big dams that we had fought for. And people were missing out on ecological systems whereby water can be given. The amount of waste of water is just amazing. Yeah? And not only the waste of water, the amount of waste that we put into water, then we put that into our rivers, and then we put that into the oceans, and then we massacre the fish. Yeah? And we make life difficult also for people who want to explore the seas and the whole of the marine culture. Yeah? So Penang is quite fortunate. People come here and they see, even when they go down the town, there are people having their stick and fishing, which is an indicator of something quite nice. Yeah? And this is in the city itself, down there. And if you go around here, we have a very big marine center, marine research center at the end of this, where in the evenings you can see a lighthouse. And we have the United Nations World Fish Center. So, you have FAO food, you have UNICEF. So for fish, we have a World Fish Center. And that World Fish Center is located in Penang, near the airport. And it does a lot of research and work with regard to what's happening to the oceans and that. So sometimes I call Penang the fish and chips capital of the world. Why fish? Why fish? We got the World Fish Center here. Why chips? We are also among the world's leaders in the production of electronic chips. So we are a huge center here. We were like among the top 3 chip producers. So Penang has that wonderful mixture of nature and also of industry, of being both local and global. And so it has an atmosphere that has brought up and nurtured lots of activists. So what can we do to make the change? What can we do to make the change? I haven't seen this being thrown at me yet. Yeah. Are you throwing it to me? Yeah. What can we do? The most important message that I gave, even very early when I was working after my award, is that little people doing little things in little places can actually change the world. So every little action that you take, every little thing, like the Seikatsu Club, little things that we're doing, the shopping and the way we behave, and even the shoes that we wear, watch, our clothes, everything, every little thing can actually make a difference. And if you have that in your mindset, then actually you can change the world. It will take time, but these things, they spread like the butterfly effect. You have to read the butterfly effect, how a small thing can actually cause a little wind, and the wind can cause something else, some of that can cause something else and something else. Just amazing, amazing thing. So that is. The second thing is we are fighting a battle that is global, that is universal. So we must be good at networking. This is not a battle that we can fight alone. We have to have our networks. So you find many organizations that are now cooperating together. I coined the term network for the first time to be used by civil society. So the first civil society networks were built there. The wonderful thing about network is that it's a natural way. We don't have corporations. We don't even register. What we do is that we find like-minded people and we connect with each other. So we don't call ourselves organizations, institutions. We call ourselves the network. And everybody who agrees to a central charter, of the core values that are to be fought, whether in the area of infant nutrition, in the area of pesticides, in the area of pharmaceuticals, we will form a network. And this creates a problem that the corporations and even governments say, whom do we shoot to kill? There's nobody. There's no, like a leader, Every one of the organizations is a leader. And each organization will say, if you're very good at technical fields, help the whole network with your technical field. You're very good at communication. Like in our case, when we started the World Breastfeeding Movement, the World Council of Churches set up the first flyer that we had to promote infant nutrition. And they put it because they had thousands and thousands of copies of newsletter that they sent out to the whole world. And what we do, we put 2 pages inside there. And where our message goes everywhere, in the place. Now, of course, we have the digital world. And with the digital world, of course, we can move forward and get our stuff done. But we know that the digital movement can also be an enemy, because there are also other people who can begin. If we look at the new challenge of advertising, the new challenge of affecting us, it's going to be a huge new area. So our mass communication systems have to be very good. Never forget that we have 3 parts of our brain. We have the automatic brain, the first brain. That's like if somebody hits you, if you're hungry, you have to eat food, The second brain is the emotional brain. They want to sell a motor car. They put a beautiful woman outside with very few clothes on. Everybody will go and look at the motor car. And they get into your emotion. Food, they get a celebrity to eat a certain food. You feel very good. And the third brain is the thinking brain. And for us, that thinking brain is the most important part that we have to make sure that we have, and we can do the things in an organized way, and that we can then fight to make sure our emotions are controlled in the right directions. So I have many arms waving to say that it's time soon for lunch. Just remember 2 things. If you want to grow, make the whole world your garden. If you want to learn, make the whole world your university. Thank you.